I'm on a mission. Yes, on a mission to find how people keep well. What does it really mean to keep well? We all know why we have to keep well, don't we? How do you keep well? Today's fast-paced world means we often get caught up with the daily grind. We struggle to develop or maintain practices that help to maintain our well-being. It's very easy to feel overwhelmed by the constant demands and pressure. It's so easy to get distracted, isn't it? And end up doing exactly what we know we shouldn't be doing. Having easy to digest information to guide and remind you to keep well can make a world of difference. Consider me to be your dedicated well-being partner, cheering you to achieve big dreams and goals, which is only possible by keeping yourself well, living a happy, healthy, and meaningful life. Hello, and welcome once again to another episode of How Do You Keep Well? I love sharing scientific insights in a simple way to keep you going, motivated, and help you create a positive, happy, healthy, and meaningful life. My name is Dr. Jaye. I am a GP with interest in women's health and aging, and in particular, lifestyle medicine. The question I have for you is, are you on track to live to 100 years old? Okay, maybe I should make it simpler. How can you tell if you're aging well? Do you have signs to show it or not? And my third question is it possible to live a happy, healthy, meaningful life after midlife? Or do you think the best of you is gone? Or better still, because menopause is the buzzword nowadays, do you think it's possible to live a happy, healthy, meaningful life during or after menopause? Well, if you want to know the answer to these questions, keep listening. I know aging is like a taboo topic. We prefer talking about how young we look or how young we feel or the good old days. Recently, I found an app which could tell me how young I looked by taking my picture or a selfie of me, and then it would analyze all the various features of my face using AI. Trust me, even though I'm a very curious person, I thought this one, I'm going to move on. I did not want the app to tell me something upsetting. I didn't want it to tell me that I was looking older than my age. Now, aging population is a global phenomenon. It's characterized by a rapid decline in fertility rates and increased life expectancy, thanks to advancement in science, in research, and technology. We now know that we have a rapidly increasing number and proportion of people over the age of 60. And it's predicted that by 2050, 1 in 6 people in the world will be over the age of 65. That is a lot. And the number of people that are aged 80 or older is expected to triple between 2020 and 2050. We are going to keep our geriatricians busy. And look at this. In 2020 alone, there was an estimated 657 million women who were aged 45 to 59. That is incredible. What I actually find most fascinating is the fact that the United Nations General Assembly declared the 2021 to 2030 as the United Nations Decade of Healthy Aging. And the plan is to help to reduce health inequities and improve the lives of older people, families, and communities through collective action in 4 areas. Changing how we think, how we feel, how we act towards age and ageism, amongst other things. So my aim today is really to help us to start thinking about our lifespan, about our health span, about our longevity in a more positive way. Did you see how I clearly avoided age altogether there? Yes, I need us to begin to move away from the negative perceptions of age to a more positive perception. This alone can increase our lifespan by 8 years. I think we have all just been conditioned to make assumptions about aging. Many of these cliches have been ingrained since we were toddlers. We've seen our grandparents, we've seen grandparent next door, the grandmas and the grandpa, our uncles, our aunties. We've seen their gray hair. We've seen them lose what we think is their memory. And there's a lot of misconception out there, to be honest with you. And the one that really gets to me is when they say older people are way past their time. You should see my mom. Even though she's a little bit more fragile, but she's still as feisty as ever. Even though many people think my mom is gentle, but with our kids, she is quite strict and she's still a very strict disciplinarian. And some people always say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Even sometimes I get carried away with this. There's that misconception that old age equals unhappiness, loneliness, weakness, and frailty. And some people think people that are older don't need as much sleep. Now, all of these are just misconceptions and they can actually cause us to have a negative perception of aging. And we need to replace some of those negative thoughts and words with more positive aging related words. Now, one of the more clinical ones that I always like talking about is osteoporosis. Some people think that osteoporosis only affects women. It does affect men as well. So it's really important to address every aspect of aging, from your mindset to your physical self, even to how you help other people. Now, some people think older people are too old for TikTok. Again, I disagree with that. In fact, I like seeing older people on TikTok because it begins to give me visual representation of what life could be at that point in time. And I think it helps to build a more positive mindset. I always love seeing other people doing skits or pranks or dancing. It's just such a positive way of looking at other people. So don't let your less negative ideas of growing old shroud your mindset and your attitude to healthy aging. The truth is that our attitude to aging has an enormous impact on our health. According to scientists who describe the theory of stereotype embodiment, cognitive and physical health outcomes are influenced by the kinds of age stereotypes internalized by an individual. So, can you imagine what you're internalizing? The sights, the thoughts that you're internalizing can affect your health and your cognitive, the way your brain works. Negatively stereotyping age increases the risk of depression. It affects your immune system. It affects your cardiovascular system, compared to having a more positive perception of aging, which actually improves your longevity, like I talked about before, your health, your functional health, and your well being. So, the first step I would recommend to aging well, beautifully, and graciously is your mindset. You don't want to grow bitter. You don't want to be that person who everybody avoids, partly because of the way you have approached life. Determine in yourself to age in such a beautiful way that even other people would marvel at you and wonder what is the elixir of your youth. You can always point them back to me, that I gave you a secret sauce of life. So my number one recommendation for healthy aging from your one and only Dr. Jaye is work on your mindset. Have a growth positive mindset about aging. Choose to have a positive stereotype about aging and don't be deceived by what you've seen so far. Things can get better even as you get older. So, my podcast today is to stimulate your thought process, to inspire you, so you can begin to have it not just at the back of your mind, the tools and the strategies, but you can start indulging in it from right on. Bring it to the front of your mind, not the back anymore, so that you can start something even if you have never tried anything before. The good news is that we're all living longer. Okay, no doubt about it. The prediction is that the average child born today is likely to live to 103 years old. So, even better than what we have right now. This is a global mega trend. It's going viral. In this century alone, we have added 30 more years to the average life expectancy. Several different needs would obviously come up as we get older, especially now that we're all getting older. But it's not unusual for us to need to be more economically productive as well. Whether or not it's working hard in your younger years and saving up for your older years, it's really important to have or attain some independence economically as you get older. And in fact, statistics is telling us that at least here in the United Kingdom, in the UK, we have a record number of people living in their 60s who are self employed. People are still working to the age of 60. So, whether or not this is out of necessity to be economically independent or whether it's just out of joy of living, it's really hard to tell. But the idea I want you to have here is your brain can still function if you give yourself a chance. In women, research tells us that close to 60% of women between the ages of 50 to 54 continue to contribute to the workforce. The problem is if they aren't on top of their menopause symptoms such as fatigue, sleep problems, hot flushes, joint pain, I wonder how well they are actually contributing. And this is why I say over and over, midlife is the perfect time to start making additional efforts to live well because it's going to pay off in the longer term. Recently, I had attended the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine conference and I met this lady, Dr. Wendy Sweet. She actually discussed some very interesting points and I was fascinated, absolutely fascinated listening to her. She was talking about various research work she's done, including hers, and the vitally important topic of the science of healthy aging in women, the impact of hormonal transitions on the degree of inflammation in our bodies, as well as vascular stiffness. Well, you know what? I know these are very big medical words, but I'm sure you understand the flow where I'm going to. But the summary is that menopause is such a big critical factor that causes accelerated aging in women. And in fact, understanding the science behind it potentially can cause you to hack into the system of aging. Now, through behaviors, motivation, information, intention, and sometimes hand holding you to create healthy habits and sometimes medication, we can hack into the system. And I really like one of these statements by I read it somewhere. When the hormones drop in women in menopause, the body just struggles to compensate because the drop sometimes can be quite rapid for some women. So that means that their symptoms are a lot more. But when the system is better balanced, then the body is able to compensate better for when hormone drops. I hope you get the drift there. The idea is trying to keep your system balanced, especially if you're a woman, partly because when menopause comes, your body is going to struggle, and it is what you have fed your body in a lot of different ways that would hold the balance up for you better. So, one question I would ask you is, are there things you're doing? Could there be things you're doing to make you age quickly? Of course, I am a GP and I have interest in lifestyle medicine. So I'm always looking out for the big six when I talk to people about their health behaviors. So your eating habits, your movement, how you're resting, how you're avoiding stress, how you have positive connections, avoiding toxins. And toxins could be actually, I mean, when we talk about toxins, people think it's just smoking or alcohol. But toxins could be in the form of what's in the environment you live in, the plastics or the amount of caffeine or caffeinated drinks you're having, or even medications that are prescribed. Are you having too many of these? But there are certain other habits that these are all habits that tip people into aging. Now, some argue that longevity is genetic, while others say that living a long life is simply a choice. Personally, I believe both have a role to play, both in our health span and lifespan. Nature is what has been handed down to us in our genes. So if you have a family and typically you live long in the family, your chances to live into an old age is higher. But your environment is what really nurtures this. So, for example, if you have a genetic makeup that causes you to live long and it's been passed down to you from generations, like all genes are, but instead you choose to, or this individual chooses to live life in a reckless way, including doing or experience or being in a places where they are damaged, whether or not from accidents or whether intentionally. Of course, they can't live that long. So, nurturing what nature has blessed you with can cause your lifespan to become limited or severely shortened. Sometimes you may live long, but you may be, or that person, an individual may be in and out of hospital for majority of the time. And this is where scientists often talk about genetics only accounting for 20% of the longevity outcomes, whilst epigenetics, and these are the bits that are influenced by our lifestyle practices, account for a whooping 80%. That is big. So the genes only account for 20%, but our lifestyle practices account for 80%. That is huge. So, first of all, before we go further on, I read this article written by Dr. Pollock, who is an NHS consultant geriatrician, and she's written a book called The Golden Rule. She lists the pitfalls of aging, and I quite like how practical these pitfalls were and how she writes it. So, for example, someone who keeps making excuses not to do things, not to try things, not to befriend younger generations, who is very stingy, not giving or helping other people have a sense of belonging or sense of purpose, or obsessing constantly over their medical health, taking too many tablets, even moving into a bungalow because that restricts the movement, or refusing to get a hearing aid. Sometimes resting too much, sleeping all the time, or expecting a physiotherapist to do a miracle for you. Or even things like just accepting in your mindset that you're frail or you reach that time of life where there's not much that can be done. Or you're holding out against technology. These are all factors that can make people age a lot quicker or a lot quicker. If you're doing any of these things, I warn you now, the kingdom of aging well is coming. So you have to put a stop to all of this and begin to become more active. So earlier, I talked about health span and lifespan very briefly. People are living longer than ever before. Life expectancy is steadily climbing over in the last couple of decades. This is in large part due to public health and medical innovation. However, a crucial divergence exists. The gap between how long we live and how long we live in good health. And this is the crux of the matter. While we are living longer and extending lifespans, we are not necessarily extending the years spent in good health. And this is what is referred to as health span. Health span is that time of your life when you live a carefree life without any disease in your system. And this is the period of one's life that where one is healthy. Being healthy, of course, means different things to different people. Being healthy means being free from serious diseases. I have my own personal story to share here. The first time I came into contact with a serious disease was whilst I was pregnant. And in my first pregnancy, I was diagnosed with high blood pressure just before I had my baby. And in my second pregnancy, I was diagnosed with diabetes. I remember the shock when I was told I had these conditions. At the time, I was in my mid 30s. So I decided there and then that I didn't want to take any medications. I made it a goal to live in such a way as to avoid any complications from this disease. I was actually aware as a doctor patient. Now, these conditions worsen as one ages, and the control can become even more difficult. So I felt the need to do myself a favor by creating a way to prevent these conditions getting or progressing beyond what my numbers were currently showing me. I have created and maintained changes to my lifestyle, which has helped control both my blood pressure, which I still have to take a tablet for, and also my blood sugar, which I have continued to manage with my diet. I'm quite determined to live well despite these conditions because I want to live well into old age. I want to be that person who is able to be a role model of aging well. Notably, women have a higher life expectancy than men. In 2021, this difference amounted to a 5 year gap in global life expectancy. So it was 73.8 compared to previous that was 68.4. However, most of this higher life expectancy means that most women are living longer with some disabilities. Women tend to live longer than men, but their health is a lot worse when they are older compared to men. Women often experience higher rates of chronic conditions such as arthritis and depression. And you may have heard of this word called sandwich generation. In fact, some people call it the panini generation because women are being squeezed from every side, leading to stress levels and chronic inflammation within the body. Other conditions such as dementia, multiple sclerosis, migraine, and stroke disproportionately affect women. Over twice as many women have Alzheimer's disease, and this is a very common type of dementia compared with men. Several of these disparities are as a result of biological, social, and environmental factors. For many women, especially in midlife, experiencing hormonal transitions, some of the protection offered by our natural hormone estrogen slowly declines, contributing to higher risk of cardiac and metabolic conditions. It's even more important to focus on things we can do to naturally help our bodies. So, for example, we need to consider all of these approaches, finding balance through mindfulness, building strength through movement, nurturing our brain, our heart, and our gut by adjusting our nutrients. Whether or not you want to restrict your calories, or you want to have fasting windows, or you have more plant based food. So avoid giving into the fear of the helpless perimenopause pandemic that we have right now. And all of this is just going to keep adding to an ongoing stress. So, for example, I would like us to create a habit of nurturing our health span. And this would help us create and live in our own personal blue zone where we can remain relevant within our spheres of influence. Now, what has blue zone got to do with aging? Have you heard about this before? There are basically areas of the world where people who live there live into their hundreds compared to other places in the world. These regions, people live longer and they have lower rates of chronic disease or diseases of old age. And as Dr. Peter Attia puts it in his book, The Four Horsemen of Longevity, The four horsemen of longevity are chronic disease that are the leading cause of death for many people. And this is heart disease, cancer, neurodegenerative disease, type 2 diabetes, and related metabolic dysfunction. I quite like that book, to be honest with you. I've listened to it and I've read parts of it before. And his book is called The Science and Art of Longevity. And it's a bit of a mix of like autobiography and a bit of a medical journal. So he talked about things like being proactive to looking after ourselves and also identifying problems early is very important. So going back to Blue Zone, you can create and live in your own blue zone. And basically, this involves carving out what's best for you in three areas of life. What's best for you now may become over a while obsolete, and you then need to, keep improving on this. So, first of all, nurturing your mindset is important. Adopting healthy lifestyle habits is important. And lastly, helping people. Even if you're not genetically programmed to live long, you would have programmed yourself to do so by being intentional in adopting these three practices: your mindset, your health habits, and helping other people. The original Blue Zone areas are scattered all across the world in Japan, Italy, Greece, Costa Rica, California. And research has found that no one factor accounts for the longevity we see in these areas. A number of different factors work for these different areas. Through research of these extraordinary cultures of longevity, lessons for living long, vibrant lives have been distilled into various different practices that ranges from the type of diet we eat, how much we eat, when we eat, how frequently we eat, having power naps, sensible movements around a sense of purpose and connection. And these are all simple practices I believe we can use to create our own blue zone when you nurture your genes into life and wholeness, pursuing sustainable practices, things that you can keep going in my 90s. So, some people describe the different layers that contribute to us keeping well. But to be honest, the science behind keeping well is not just for our psychological benefit, but for physiological benefits. And I like this article written by a gentleman called Harvey Friedman from the Institute of Public Health. He says social, intellectual, and physical activities are also huge health span determinants. Even though they may be more commonly associated with psychological effects, their strong physiological effects should not be ignored. They should be treated by medical professionals as frontline approaches alongside medicine. We all know that real health is not about taking pills or supplements, is it? Real health is when we find ways forward with optimal mental, social, physical, and spiritual well being, and we step into each day with energy and enthusiasm. Nurturing our health span and nature contributes to a good lifespan, a life well lived. Let's decide to do this. So next, I will talk very briefly about what research is telling us about what's happening internally and what we observed externally. Let me first of all start with internal changes. These are things that we can't see with our bare eyes anyway, because it's internal. But to be honest, aging is such a significant process. And I believe it starts from the moment we are born, and our body just gets better at keeping making us age. But there's a multidimensional, multi-organ, and multi-system process that starts taking place the moment we are born. It involves the immune system, inflammation, hormonal system, and cellular functions. So there's a lot, stem cells exhaustion, genetic changes, nutritional sensing, and even bacteria in our gut, the gut microbiome. Honestly, I have found it extremely fascinating reading about the hallmarks of aging, and there are 12 of them. And the summary is these three main hallmarks of aging. The primary hallmark is the one that involves the damages to our genetic and epigenetic nature, down to the chemical processes involved in the stages. This accumulates over a period of time and is a major contribution to the aging process. The antagonistic hallmarks are the ones that reflect responses to damage. They play a more nuanced role in the aging process. And finally, the integrative hallmarks arise when the accumulative damage inflicted by the primary and the antagonistic hallmarks cannot be compensated anymore, resulting in stem exhaustion, alterations in the way the cells communicate with each other, chronic inflammation, and dysbiosis. All of these are dictating the pace of aging. Reading this article, especially if you're scientific minded, will help you understand why aging can be modified by paying attention to the microcosm, the immediate environment of the cells. And certainly, this is the view of the longevity experts that aging should no longer be considered inevitable. There's enough information, technology, and intervention available that can prevent the buildup of sequences leading to cell damage. Although each of these hallmarks can be targeted one by one, and they yield a lot of benefits for lifespan or health span. In fact, I have personally heard about various supplements that actually target these 12 hallmarks of aging and others that target one of the hallmarks or the other. Honestly, I can't help but marvel at the wisdom God has blessed our generation with. To all the scientists out there, a lot of kudos for pushing the frontiers of science. If you're like me and you want to give yourself the best shot at this life, you have no excuse anymore not to pay attention to your health and well being. There's enough information that can help you do so. So, externally, or maybe the bits we can see, first of all, let's look at the heart and the cardiovascular system. For most people, as we get older, blood vessels begin to become stiff. And it is this stiffening of the blood vessels that is worse in women after a certain age. And some people actually think this is what causes the second wave of menopause symptoms that women experience in their 60s. Now, this stiffness causes the heart to work harder to pump blood through them. Muscles of the heart needs to adjust. The heart rate struggles to increase during activity like before. This causes the BP to go up and other problems kick in too. This is the reason we recommend physical well-being needs to be nurtured. When you exercise, you increase mitochondria, the energy powerhouse of the cell, and in your muscle. Mitochondria are essentially to burn fat. So you not only build muscle mass, but you burn more calories. Bones, joints, muscles begin to shrink, and there's increasing risk of fracture, and the muscles are not as flexible as before. So this all affect their balance and their coordination. The digestive system is changing, they're a bit more prone to constipation. So don't underestimate the changes in the gut microbiome as well. And that's why it's important to be mindful about medications such as antibiotics that affect the good bacteria in the gut. But also consider the quality, the type, and the frequency of eating food. Your bladder and your urinary tract. We know the bladder loses its elasticity, so the muscles in the bladder and pelvic floor are weaker. The prostate becomes enlarged in men, and women to begin to experience some prolapse. And all of this just increases the risks of the bladder not emptying and increases the risk of infection. And if you want to know about this, you can listen to episode number 4 of season 2, where I talk a bit more about women who leak urine. So the other thing is the brain. The brain certainly changes like everybody, every other part of the body. But the signature is a bit more difficult. There is also the power of experience or repetition, and that becomes like a strength actually. Now look at the eyes and the ears. Sometimes focusing on objects that are close up may become quite difficult. So there's also the sensitivity to glare and trouble adapting to different levels of light. And this is because as we all get older, the length of the eyes is affected, causing a lot of clouded vision. So I've not really talked about the teeth, skin, the weight, all sorts of different things that happens in midlife. But the end of the day, the idea is to keep yourself nourished and keep yourself nurtured. Develop some small habits you can build up now. And slowly you can create a lifestyle of looking after yourself. A lifetime of self care is not held off till a holiday or a retreat. So, what are the principles of healthy aging? And to be honest with you, I think there are many paths to a long, happy, healthy life. You can create your own blue zone by sticking to some simple guides. There is no one simple trick. It takes more than healthy diet or regular exercise. And I would recommend a whole life, whole health approach to your general well being. And I tend to teach my clients a 5 framework approach to reflect on your health journey. I call this spices of life. Yes, variety is the spice of life. And this is the 5 framework I used to teach to help people nurture their spices. So, first of all, is the spiritual well being. Find what engages your spirit, keep your spirit open and able to receive the gift of life. Recognize that life is a gift that makes you open and receptive to activating your spirit well being. Okay. So obviously there's the physical well-being, and this involves diet, movement, sleep, managing stress. You can take 5 to age well pledge. The other aspect is intellectual well-being. Seek and learn something new every day. Join a book club. Express yourself in a new creative way. And one is never too old for TikTok. The fourth thing is charity or creativity or championing a cause. And this helps you to feel a strong sense of purpose and a strong sense of belonging. Emotional well being, with so many problems facing the world today, it can be really hard to stay positive. So look out for signs that you're neglecting yourself, your mindset, your attitude, the worry points, and create your own emotional toolbox that you can call on. So address the mindsets you have about aging, think and reflect on those things that you're doing now that will be accelerating your metabolic age. Okay. And lastly, it's your social well being. Remain connected to yourself. Your community makes you feel visible. It makes you make you feel heard and fulfilled. You're able to form stronger bonds and find purpose in life and feeling satisfied. So, in summary, to develop a mindset that can help you feel good and live well, it requires a blend of spices habits. Remember, variety is a spice of life. It's about remaining fresh, optimizing our health, and unlocking the best version of ourselves at any age. Wow, today has been a bumper episode and a beautiful roundup of the month. Talking about aging wisely, aging beautifully, and aging gracefully. We have talked about nurturing our health span and creating our own sustainable blue zone. Which of your own personalized blue zone are you going to develop over the next few months? So tell me in the comments or share this with your journal, your coach, your doctor to remain accountable. And I have a new announcement to make. I'm considering opening some one on one conversation slots for people who need help. And the aim is to create a confidential space to listen and offer signposting resources or local service for free every week for women in midlife who are also struggling with their mental, physical, and emotional issues. Okay, so look out for more information about this on my social media pages, or feel free to contact me if this might be of interest to you, or join a wait list to know when this starts. To our happy, long, and prosperous life, let's keep on keeping well into the end of this September and look forward to a bright, happy, cheerful, meaningful October. Thank you for listening. So please remember to share, like, subscribe to this channel to keep me going. All right. Bye.